Hello kids, welcome back to English class. In today's video, we will read an interesting story from your literature reader book, that is chapter number 6, Wrecked on a Desert Island. I would like you all to open your literature reader books on page number 55. Now kids, before I move ahead with the explanation of the story, I would like you all to know that this story, Wrecked on a Desert Island, is taken from a novel. Okay, a novel that was published in 18th century. We are right now living in 21st century, right? And this novel was published in April 1719. So around 300 years back. So this is a very old story that we are going to read. The author of this novel is Daniel Defoe. Okay. And the name of the novel is Robinson Crusoe. So this story talks about the tales of Robinson Crusoe. Who is Robinson Crusoe? He was an Englishman and an adventurer. Now children, what do you mean by adventurer? An adventurer is a person who loves adventure, right? And he takes all types of risks to seek adventures. So in that novel, the adventures of Robinson Crusoe are beautifully described by the author Daniel Defoe. So today we are going to read a small part of that novel, that is the chapter Wrecked on a Desert Island, right? Children, if we talk about the title of the chapter, Wrecked on a Desert Island, what do you mean by wrecked? Wrecked means being ruined or destroyed, right? An island, as you have already learned in your social science, that an island is a piece of land surrounded by water. So this story is all about a person who was wrecked on a desert island. And who was that person? I have already shared with you. He was Robinson, right? Now open your books on page number 60 so that we can read about the author Daniel Defoe. It's given on page number 60 that Daniel Defoe was an English novelist, journalist and pamphleteer. Who is a pamphleteer? Pamphleteer is a person who writes pamphlets. Now what do you mean by pamphlets? Children, pamphlets is a small booklet or a leaflet that contains information about different things, right? So he was a pamphleteer, journalist and a novelist. He was a prolific writer. Prolific means very creative and versatile writer. Versatile means he was good at everything. He was an all-rounder, producing more than 300 works, including books, journals, pamphlets, etc. His most famous novel is The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. So that is the most famous novel that he has written. So a part of that only we are going to study today. Now children, if we read about Robinson, so we come to know that his actual name is Robinson Crusoe. He is the narrator of the novel Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. Okay. He is the protagonist. Protagonist means the main character of the story. So Robinson himself is the protagonist of the novel Adventures of Robinson Crusoe, that is written by Daniel Defoe. He was born in the town of York in the north of England during the 17th century. Now if you see, I have mentioned the year over there in 1632. So his birth year is 1632. That means he was born in 17th century. Okay. Century, I hope children you know that century is a period of 100 years. Okay. He describes how as a headstrong young man, he ignores his father's advice and leaves his comfortable middle class home in England to go to sea. Now he was a wanderer. Okay, his dream was to go to the sea. His father told him not to go, but he did not listen to his father and he leaves his house and moves away. He further describes how he survives through a deadly storm and spends 28 years of adventurous life on a desolate island. Now, in his novel, Robinson has described that how he had spent 28 years of his life on a deserted island. Deserted means vacated or lonely. It's written over there, a lonely island. So he lived 28 years of life in such type of place. His father is a German and his mother is an English. His father wants him to stay at home to practice law and to enjoy the middle class life here. But he was very stubborn and he did not stay there even after his father did not want him to go. But he wants to be a sailor. What was his dream? He wanted to be a sailor. Okay, so that is why in order to fulfill his wish, without even listening to his father's command, without even following what his father was saying, he just went away, and in his novel he has described his entire story, his entire adventures. Okay. So students, I have already briefed regarding what the story is all about. In this story, we will study that how Robinson's ship was encountered with a wild storm. Okay, and he has described all his experiences and efforts through which he was able to survive after that violent storm. Okay, but before continuing with the explanation of the chapter, I would like you all to have a look at this word maroon. If I ask you children, what do you mean by maroon? Then of course all of you will say, ma'am, maroon is a color, which is absolutely right. If this word is used as an adjective to describe something or someone, then this is, you can say maroon is a reddish brown color. I have maroon sofa at my place, which is absolutely right. So this word is used as an adjective. But when this word is used as a verb, an action word, then it means to leave someone trapped and alone in an inaccessible place. In an inaccessible place means the place from where the person cannot escape. Inaccessible place, especially an island. Okay, so maroon means to leave somebody trapped and alone in an inaccessible place, especially an island, where there is no resources and where there is little hope of rescue. Okay, it means to abandon somebody, to leave somebody at a place from where the person cannot escape. Okay, so why did I discuss this word with you? We will read in the chapter that how Robinson was marooned on an island, right? Now quickly open your books on page number 55 so that we can start with the explanation of the story. As you children know that the protagonist of the story is Robinson Crusoe, so his experiences are only described in this chapter. He says, "We set sail on the day I went on board." Set sail means to start a voyage, to begin a journey. Voyage means journey. So Robinson says, "We set sail on the day I went on board." On board means on the ship. "We were moving away from our own coast in Brazil towards the north. We planned to reach over the African coast." Now, where was he planning to go? He was planning to reach the African coast. "We had very good weather, although it was excessively hot, till we came to the height of Cape St. Augustino." Now he says that the weather was quite pleasant and it was excessively hot till the time they reached height of Cape St. Augustino. This is in Brazil only, right? Moving ahead with second paragraph, it says, "From where, keeping further off at sea, we lost sight of land. Now children, losing sight of something means something which is not visible to you. Okay, so as they moved off to sea, they were not able to see the land area anymore. Suddenly, the ship struck upon sand, and in a moment, her motion stopped. Now, ship struck upon sand. Struck means hit. So, the ship was hit by sand and her motion stopped. It stopped moving. At the same time, the sea broke over in such a manner that we thought we all would die immediately. Now, at the same time, the sea broke over. Sea broke over means sea crashed her. Broke over her means sea crashed her in such a manner that the sailors felt that they will soon die. We were immediately driven into our close quarters to shelter ourselves from the froth and spray of the sea. Now, the narrator and his friends, they ran to the quarters that were inside the ship so that they are able to protect themselves from the froth and spray of the sea. Froth means the foam of the sea. So, as the ship was struck by the sand, the people immediately ran inside the quarters in the ship to rescue themselves, to save themselves. It is not easy for anyone who has not been in this kind of condition to describe or imagine the fear in such conditions. Now, the narrator is saying the person who has never been in this condition cannot describe the feelings one faces, cannot imagine the fear that is there when somebody is trapped in such condition. We knew nothing about where we were. Now the narrator is saying that we had no clue about the place where we were. We were not aware that where actually the ship has brought us. Now children, let us begin the explanation from page number 56. Shift to the next page. The narrator says, we had no idea about what land we had been driven towards. Now they were not having any clue about where were they being dragged, which land were they going to, whether it was an island or a mainland. Now they were so much puzzled that they were not able to figure out that they were on an island or they were on the mainland. We did not know whether the island was or not inhabited. They were even not sure that whether somebody lived on that island, was that island inhabited, occupied or not. As the anger of the wind was still great, we were certain that the ship would soon break into pieces. Now the force of the wind was very hard. The wind was blowing angrily, fiercely. And they were sure, they were certain. Certain means sure. The sailors were sure that the ship will break into pieces. Unless a miracle happened and the winds would turn about immediately. Now they were hoping for a miracle to happen. They were thinking that some miracle, some magic might happen and the winds will turn about. It means they will decrease their speed. We sat looking upon one another and expecting death every moment. Now their faces were completely red with fear. Everybody was looking at each other's face and they were expecting death every moment. They were thinking that they will soon die. Every man began preparing for another world because there was little or nothing more for us to do in this. Now the narrator is saying that everybody started preparing themselves for another world because they were very much sure that they will not survive in this world anymore. So they started dreaming of the next world where they will go after death. The only comfort we had was when the master said that the wind had started to slow a little. They had little relief. They felt relieved when the master of the ship told them that the speed of the wind has decreased. and the wind has started to slow a little. So that was the only time when they felt comfortable. Otherwise, everybody was in complete anxiety, complete worry. The second paragraph says, now, though the wind did decrease a little, it was not much help to us. Now the narrator is saying, though the wind had decreased its speed, but still it was not of any help to us. Why? Because the ship was struck upon the sand. There was no hope of getting her off. Get off something means, getting off means to escape. So they did not find any means through which they can save their ship. We were in a dreadful condition indeed. Dreadful condition means we were in a frightening, terrible, very bad condition. And we had nothing to do but to think of saving our lives. And we could not think of anything except we could only think of saving our lives. Anyhow, we thought of the boats in the ship. Now, since narrator's ship was about to break into pieces, it was about to get damaged, so he was thinking for plan B. He was thinking of something that could save them. So he thought of the boats that they brought in their ship. We had a boat at our stern. Now children, stern is the backmost part of the ship. So they brought a boat at which was kept at the stern just before the storm. But during the storm, she had broken by dashing against the ship's rudder. So what did the narrator realize? The narrator realized that there was a boat at the back of the ship, but during the storm, it got dashed away and it might have sunk into the sea. She had either sunk or was driven off to sea. So the narrator thinks that the boat that they had at the stern was the last hope for them, and before the storm it was there, but after the storm it might have dashed into the sea water and it was not there. So he felt as if it was sunk. So there was no hope from her, and the last hope that they had from the boat of survival was also lost. We had another boat on the board, but how to get off into the sea water was not clear. Now they also had another boat, but they were not able to understand that how they will get her off into the sea water, how they will shift from the ship to the boat. However, there was no time for thinking much. We felt that our ship would break into pieces any minute. Now there was hardly any time left, and they knew that the ship is soon going to break into pieces. In fact, some people told us that she actually broken already, and some people in the ship told that it had already broken. In this situation, the mate of the vessel, now mate here means an officer or a merchant of the ship. So the mate of the ship, vessel means ship. The mate of the ship held the second boat, and with the help of rest of the men, he slung the boat over the ship's side. And after some time in that situation, the mate, the officer of the ship, he went an extra mile. He moved ahead and he held the second boat. And with the help of rest of the men, he slung. Slung means children, hung. He hung the boat over the ship's side, and with the help of other people in the boat, he tried managing to hang the boat on the side of the ship. Okay. Now we begin with page number 57. It says, all 11 of us got into her. Her means the boat that was managed by the merchant of the ship, the mate of the ship. So all 11 of them got into that boat and surrendered ourselves to God's mercy and the wild sea. And they gave away themselves in God's mercy, means God's pity. God's mercy means pity. So they just lost all the hope and they moved from the ship to the another boat. Though the storm had become weak, now the storm had decreased. It was not to an extent as it was earlier. It had decreased. It had become weak. Yet the sea ran really high upon the shore. Now, shore, what do you mean by shore? Shore means edge of the sea. Now, though the storm had become weak, the storm was decreasing, but still at the edge of the sea, there were high waves. Okay, there were high waves of the sea, and might as well be called Den Wild Zee, as the Dutch call the sea in a storm. Now, what the Dutch people called the sea in a storm, they used to call it as Den Wild Zee. So, everybody called the situation as Den Wild Zee, because at the edge of the sea, there were still huge waves. Now, our situation was very bleak. Bleak, children, means harsh, means worse. It was not very good, because we all saw plainly that the sea went so high that the boat could not survive. Now they knew that their boat will not survive because the waves of the sea were too high. We were certain means we were sure that we would drown. Now they had this thing that they will drown. There was no way to make sail, and they were not able to make any sail further. So we rowed hard. They had to push themselves. They had to row hard by working at the oars. Oar, you know, children, oar is a pole with a flat blade which is used to row the boat. So they had to work hard at oars. They had to put in a lot of effort in order to move forward, aiming to guide us towards the land. So in order to take themselves towards the land, they had to make a lot of effort. After we had rowed for a few leagues means few distance. After they had rowed to a few distance towards the land, a raging mountain-like wave came rolling astern of us. Astern of means behind. As they were moving towards the land, a raging mountain-like wave. Raging means an angry wave, a high wave. Okay, so a high wave like a mountain came rolling astern of us. Astern means they came rolling back. It took us with such a fury that it overset the boat at once. Now the wave that came like an angry mountain, it was so furious that it overturned the boat. We did not even have the time to say, "Oh God." Now the condition was extremely worse that the people even did not get the time to remember God. Everything happened all of a sudden. We were swallowed by the sea in a moment, and that very moment they were thrown into the sea and they were swallowed by the sea. Swallowed means they were eaten up by the sea. Okay, so till here we have read it, children, and I have explained you each line. Read it till here, and the next part of the chapter we'll be continuing in the next video. Okay, till here, if you come across any problems, if you have any queries, you may ask in the next class whenever I begin with the latter part of the chapter. Right, so revise it again. That's all for today. We end up with the class today. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day.